evening. I would like to welcome you and call to order the July 9th, 2019 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have our business meeting first this evening, and then we have a number of special guests out in the hallway related to the swearing in of our new police chief. And with that, we have our police chaplain, Gail Porter, here in the audience, and she's going to lead an invocation. So, Gail, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Patansu. Glorious and mighty God, I thank you for all who are here, to include out in the hallway. I pray your grace upon each and every one of them. I pray especially for your blessing upon Matt Brown as he is sworn in as Chief of Police for the Port Orchard Police Department, for the city of Port Orchard. Lord, I pray your compassion, your wisdom upon all that he endeavors to do. Amen.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, we are on to the approval of our agenda this evening. Councilmember Ashby?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to add to the consent agenda the excusal of Councilman Kachardi and Diener for personal reasons from this evening's meeting.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Diener and Councilmember Kachardi for personal reasonings from this evening's meeting. Is there any comment on that or concerns? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hearing none, they have been added to the consent agenda. So I'm a little rusty here. I missed the last meeting.
Missed one meeting. and
I
you
know it.
get
I
rusty.
can't run a meeting anymore. All right.
I would like to move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. So we have a consent agenda. Are there any objections to the consent agenda?
Would you like to do citizens' comments?
Oh, why don't we do some citizen comments? Gosh, I told you I'm rusty. Is anyone wishing to address the council for items on this evening's agenda? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the first citizen comment period. We have a second one at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Councilmember Ashby. So are there any objections to tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda then is approved by unanimous consent. So we will move on to our presentations. We have our new hire today, Jackie Brown, is in the audience. If you want to come on up, tell you a little bit about Jackie. She is our new utility manager. She's lived in Port Orchard for many years and worked in the private and public sector with utility experience. Maybe Jackie, you could maybe tell us a little bit about some of the places you've worked and your experiences.
Well, I started out at Manchester Water District as office manager for about 10 years, worked my way up to general manager, was their first general manager. Then I went to the Water and Sewer Risk Management Pool, which is a cooperative of water and sewer districts from all over the state, and basically went out and assisted districts when they had problems, either operational or administrative. Then I went to Peninsula Light Company and had the absolute delight of being able to start a water utility within an electric co-op. That was really interesting. Went to Eastern Washington for a while and worked for the State Department of Health doing sanitary surveys of small water systems. Ended up back at the city of Longview as their utilities manager, and one of the things we went through in Longview was changing the source from the Cowlitz River from surface water that was still silting in from Mount St. Helens to well water. Changed the direction of flow and the pressures in the city. That was extremely challenging. Most recently, I worked for Mountain View Edgewood Water Company. I followed my son back up here from Southwest Washington because I didn't want to be that far away from my grandson. And then actually retired from there. I have been off work for 7 months and said, this is not for me. I need to go back into the utility industry. So here I am. I'm very grateful to be hired by the city of Port Orchard right here in my own hometown.
Wonderful. Any questions?
Can I answer any questions?
Yeah. Any questions for Jackie? We're excited to have her. It was, tough to lose Thomas to Port Angeles as their new Public Works Director, but we're excited to have Jackie on board. And as we know, we've got a number of projects for her to work on. So thank you for coming this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you here tomorrow.
Yep, thank you very much.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is we've got John Powers from the Kitsap Economic Development Alliance. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jackie, congratulations on coming to work for a great team here at the city. It reminds me of my first job at the Lake Geneva Water Department, where I painted 285 fire hydrants by hand one summer. I had orange paint from stem to stern all summer long. So, thank you for the opportunity to come before you and briefly update you on what's occurred with your alliance in the second quarter of this year. And then also to share with you some data that I think is of interest to you as it is to really all communities across Kitsap. So let me start with the numbers. In the second quarter, we worked directly with 4 of the Port Orchard-based PTAC clients, and PTAC, again, is our Procurement Technical Assistance Center, where we work with small businesses to connect them to government opportunities, mostly in the shipyard, Department of Defense, U.S. Navy, but not all. Some of them are cities, some of them are counties, some of them are utility districts. And last year, we helped nearly 180 businesses in that regard, and they secured over $200 million in contract work with local government. So we had a good PTAC month here. We also conducted classes in which Port Orchard and other community small businesses participated. We did a presentation to the Port Orchard Chamber of Commerce. Our board chair, Monica Blackwood, back in May, presented there, and I appreciate her involvement. She's doing a terrific job for us, by the way. She's the CEO of West Sound Workforce and been involved with our alliance for many, many years. We also helped support and introduce the new SBDC, Small Business Development Corporation Director, Kevin Holt, who will be here as they open up the center this summer. He'll be here through the remainder of the year. Then they'll look for a permanent director come next January. So if you have any ideas on that, we're all ears working with them. It's a great program. They will complement much of the work that we do here at the Alliance.
John, did that get fully funded? They wanted a 2-year.
Actually, they did. They were able to, and hats off to Tony George from the Kitsap Bank, who is a Western Washington University business grad, and kind of took the bull by the horns and charged into the arena, and within about 90 days had the commitments necessary for Western Washington University to be comfortable that they could come in and open up. They'll be in the Paulsbo Kitsap Regional Library lower level. That's where they're going to start. Eventually, they may relocate out to the OC campus, but we'll see how that goes. For now, the rent is right. Let's see. Active in the 6-month startup. This is our second cohort. We began one last fall, successfully completed it after 5 months, just started another one in May, doing quite well. There's about 13 small business would-be, wannabe entrepreneurs in that class. We're also partnering with, someone mentioned, I think it was you, Jay, that there's TV ads being run by the Kitsap Tourism organization led by Patty Graff-Hoke, who does a great job. And we've struck partnerships with them to get that message out in the magazine that was just published by Sound Publishing. We've got a nice visual of a waterboarder here on the Sound with the mountain background, and the caption is, "Less commute, more community," which is really what you find here in this marketplace. So we're proud of that work. Also want to update you, there was an article in the South Business Journal, which is published out of Tacoma, highlighting business opportunities and businesses here in Kitsap County. So we're pleased to take our message south. We sometimes focus it to the east, but it's good to know that there's opportunities that lie both north and south of us. Then I'll share some data regarding your employers that will be, I think, of interest to you. The top employers in South Kitsap and here in the city of Port Orchard include, the very largest employer is the South Kitsap School District. No surprise there. It's the largest school district, I think, in the state today, as far as their high school anyway. Still remains that way. So they employ 1,150 individuals. Kitsap County, right behind them, our local county government with 1,140. The VA home has quite an employment base of 330. The city of Port Orchard is at 81, and as the mayor tells me, and growing. I think we might have just met 82 tonight. These numbers can be updated. And then the West Sound Utility District employs 32. Also notable relative to county-wide impact, some of the larger employers that are headquartered here in Port Orchard, including Kitsap Bank, that employs 298 folks across their platform, the majority of that in Kitsap County. West Bay Auto Parts with over 100 employees and headquartered here in Port Orchard as well. And all the other major players, including CHI, Harrison, Doctors Clinic, and others that have multiple locations throughout this regional economy are here in Port Orchard as well. So I thought you'd be interested in some of those numbers. It demonstrates that you are a significant contributor and base to this local regional economy. I also want to take just a moment to recap you on our Paris Air Show endeavors that we were about 3 weeks ago in mid-June. We had a delegation of 4 Kitsapians, if you would. Charlotte Garrido was one of the members of the delegation, and Axel Stracklejohn, the port commissioner, was one of the members. And then Tim Thompson and I, that have been co-chairing this alliance since it was established 7 years ago. The 4 of us joined a large delegation from Washington State of over 70 folks, the largest ever. And we traveled to Le Bourget, which is the airport outside of Paris, where this very large international air show is held. We met with 18 companies at the show over 5 days. Many of those we already have a relationship with, the major defense contractors, including Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, and UTC. And I want to mention that the UTC and Raytheon meetings for us this year were particularly important because those 2 large defense contractors are merging. And the surviving entity, which will be UTC, is going to retain the name Raytheon IDS, Integrated Defense Systems. They both believe that that combination of their talents and skills and missions will create new opportunities in those communities where they're already located, such as Kitsap. Raytheon has a large presence at Keyport, and potentially new programs that could be brought to communities that have demonstrated a solid ability to host defense contractors. And I can tell you there is not another community in the Northwest that is better suited to host that type of activity because we already do it. And what's interesting about Navy Base Kitsap and its distinct missions is they are a manufacturing entity enterprise. Very unusual. Most defense installations aren't about manufacturing and engineering and nuclear science and all that goes into Naval Base Kitsap. They're mostly about training and soldiers and sailors and airmen to be on the front line. So I think we're uniquely qualified to grow our defense-based economy in addition to what's happening with the Department of Defense at the shipyard, which is really at pretty historic numbers here over the last 30 years, their employment base. So a lot of good things happening there. Of the 18 meetings, we also met with 6 companies, private sector, European-based companies that we met with last year that are still interested in coming to the Seattle market, engineering firms, manufacturing firms, logistic firms, and all of them right now are still expressing interest, but waiting to see what Boeing does relative to its plans for the new mid-market aircraft, NMA, or they're dubbing it the 797. I think when things settle down with the 737 MAX, which I am hopeful will occur here by the close of the year, that Boeing can then move forward and focus on the next product. And we're working hard to make sure that next product is built here in the state of Washington and impacting supply chain participants such as TMF Inc., a local machine shop, or Kitsap Composites in your Port Orchard Business Park, providing more opportunities for them to make supplies and parts for that new airplane. One of the things we did at the show when we met with Raytheon is we celebrated one of our local businesses, TMF CNC Machining, and Anna Reyes Potts, who's on our Economic Development Alliance Board. They were named by Raytheon as a 5-star supplier of excellence, their highest award given to over 3,000 suppliers that supply the Raytheon platform. 16 of the 3,000 achieved that level of recognition for the good work they do for that company. We can build on that because there are others here in Kitsap as well that can diversify the type of products and supplies that they are building that can go beyond the shipyard, as important as the shipyard is. So we had a really good show, and I'm very pleased for the contributions that my co-chair, Tim Thompson, who retired from the port 6 years ago, but remained active in our alliance as the co-chair. This was Tim's last show. He said, "That's it, I'm not coming back. I need to spend a little more time in my new home in Idaho." He and his wife Denise are doing well, but after 6 years involved in this alliance, he's stepping back. We will miss him a great deal because he really contributes an awful lot in our relationships with the company. So that's in a nutshell as far as big activity in the last quarter, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Clausen?
Yeah, John, I was just reading maybe 2 publications ago on the Puget Sound Business Journal, and there was a large section devoted to Boeing and kind of the support industry around Boeing and what was going on in the air industry. And it was actually not only interesting, but kind of exciting to see their projections of airplane needs and things of that nature. But one part that really was enlightening for me, at least, was the suppliers of various components to Boeing, and one of which was expanding quite large in Pierce County. They make some internal products for the airplanes. I'm not sure which one, but it just struck me as you talked about these support agencies and these agencies that do such great work. I would think instead of, I've always kind of envisioned, gee, if we could get Boeing over here, well, that's probably not realistic, but getting more organizations that would support Boeing in their effort. I mean, since Boeing is a rather large employer in the state of Washington, that would be a market. I don't know if you focus beyond the Paris Air Show on the potential of attracting more suppliers of components to the airplanes from over here.
As a matter of fact, it is a focus of ours, and Boeing is, the big dog, if you would, the big prize, and I want to be respectful. The chances of Boeing coming into Kitsap County at the Puget Sound Industrial Center at Bremerton, large as it is, 3,000 contiguous acres, greenfield industrial site development, the chances of that happening with what they've already got invested in the I-5 corridor from Everett down through Renton is slim. But what is not slim are large suppliers that will feed that beast, if you would. And we met 2 years in a row with Spirit Aerosystems, which is Boeing's largest supplier and has basically the fuselage on the 737 and a whole bunch of additional structure parts on almost every Boeing product. And we've met with them twice. We met with the CEO, Tom Gentile is his name. They are not yet in the Seattle market, but they are coming to look and understand that if they're going to go beyond the 737, which is basically put together in Wichita and railed all the way out here to Renton, if they're going to go beyond that and have a major play in some of the other products, they may need a large site. And frankly, to find a large site on the I-5 corridor, which is brownfield development, very expensive, very pricey, very timely, would be difficult. We believe a company like that could set up a large operation here, hundreds of thousands of square feet and hundreds of employees, and still get their raw materials in and their finished product up to Boeing right here on 16 down to I-5 and up to Renton or Everett. And remember, the supply chain at night, we think about the congestion, particularly during the commuting hours that you and I encounter. Boeing is shipping their products, their vans, at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. There's a lot of industrial supplies moving along that I-5 corridor in the middle of the night that aren't standing in traffic. And we are literally 37 miles from Renton and about 58, 62 from Boeing Field and about 75, 80 up in Everett. So we're in that region of possibilities. So when we talk to companies, we talk to them about their opportunities with Boeing. Not that we wouldn't dream of having a Boeing plant here, and that isn't necessarily something that would be precluded, but chances are it would be part of their supply chain.
Would the rail line be a viable transportation option?
Yes, with a footnote, and rightfully so. It has priority service to the shipyard, national defense priority. Now, Waste Management's been on that line for how many years? And they do just fine, taking the garbage out on that line. If someone were to come in and build a multi-million-dollar plant that required raw materials or finished products to go in and out by rail, they'd have to take a real hard look and try and assess the potential risk, remote as it is, that the Navy might say to them, look, you can't be on that line tomorrow, you can't be on that line for a week, you can't be on that line for a month because of what's going on at the shipyard. That's a possibility, but I think in most cases it's manageable. And that rail gets right down to the central hub in west Washington and onto the national grid very quickly. So it's a good line. It just has that caveat of priority use for Department of Defense.
Thank you.
Other questions for John? Okay, thank you, Mr.
I
Powers.
shared with you tonight the portfolio that we take to the shows with us. I think it's the best piece of any community in Washington State telling our story. It's replete with the facts and data that people are looking for. It acknowledges that the city of Port Orchard is on our steering committee and leadership. The mayor is. I apologize that the city logo is not on there. It will be on the next rendition. Thank you. And thank you for your time tonight. Okay,
Thank you, Mr.
thanks.
Powers. Okay, we are on to our next item, which is an executive session that I hope will last no more than 20 minutes. Pursuant to RCW 40.30.1101I, related to ongoing and potential litigation matters. So we will be back as soon as we can.